Morning. Erev Yom Kippur. The day of at one mint, I've heard it called. Be at one with Hashem, and we've already done Tshuva. How many people in Chabad take seriously what the Rabbi said about being after the final rectifications, after the birur, the nefesh bahamas, which is always seen, the animal soul, the animal instincts, the drive that seems uncontrollable, is going to be in alignment with the Supernal Will and no longer an impediment, no longer an obstacle or an enemy. So that is a lot to wrap your head around. So I'm trying to help you understand it and live it. Here we say, and we're learning the Maimer of Akacha, the Rebbe Marash. We were speaking about why the prototype of redemption, the Exodus from Egypt, was one that was the chipazain, welcome, a frenzy. It was a urgent transformation to get us away from evil because evil still had a grip on us. But that's not the way it's going to be in the future redemption. We describe it here like this. Since at the time of the Exodus from Egypt, they were still attracted to the evil. They had to be pushed out in this type of frenzy or urgency. But in the future to come, Shikvar Yugmar Biru Nefesh Bahamas. And he says the words that the Rebbe said has already happened. That the animal soul has already been rectified. Then you're not going to need I have to give my shit, I'm sorry, this is the way it is. I've discussed this is the way it is. Until we get a little ball here, I'm right in the middle. Wait till I give you a tour. In the future redemption, when the nefesh bahamas, the animal soul, will already have been rectified, you won't need assistance in your journey to fight this thing, because you won't be fighting it anymore. Rather, there is going to be one direction we're going in and nothing in our way. And one can go on their own strength, their own initiative. Welcome, Yael, it's been a long time. What will be the fate of the era of Rav in the Messianic future? Adam, Yaakov, and Moshe risked a lot for them. The era of Rav, if they were true converts, I haven't heard it said that they won't receive a reward in the world to come, so they'll probably be there. But remember, the redemption doesn't start with Tchias and Macy, so we're going to deal with what we have here, and people are going to trace their soul's sort of migration through the various incarnations, I suppose, and have their schar built on what they went through. That's a major theme that I'm trying to bring out in my shiurim. That it's about Bina, it's about the way we understand things. That makes the future redemption an eternal redemption. The Exodus was characterized and distinct in that, from the future redemption, in that it was transient. It was a temporary moment to leap through the rabbit hole and get somewhere better. So this was completed in chapter 2 with the words, in the future to come, there won't be any place for evil to have a grip on the Jewish souls. We won't have to run. And then any frenzy is an actually positive thing because you're frenzied and going at your pace. And it's going to explain, in this mimer, we're now starting chapter 3, to explain that there's not going to be a need for an urgent escape or extraction. You're not going to be extracted from, you're not going to have to be extracted from exile. It's going to be more like you're going to be lit to want to transform yourself, and you'll do it at your own pace. And you'll do it with your own perspective, your own mindset will become paramount. V'hinei hagan ki b'achti pozin d'mitzrayim ein ademel ha-mechvachez shemahar bli yishuv adas klal. Although the urgent fleeing of Egypt cannot be compared to one who is in a state of panic. It wasn't a state of panic, the Marash is saying here. But in fact it had a measured conscious experience. Yishuv Adas, your mind was settled when this was happening. It just happened in an urgent way. It was just that, according to a rational calculation, they had to move fast. They had to move fast, so they calculatedly said, let's go now, and they ran. So it wasn't a frenzy like they're losing their iPhones on the way. It's more of grab your things and go. And they knew that they'd be doing it. They prepared for it. It was something that they were able to prepare for, to go fast. It's like, what do they say about the army? Rush to wait, or something like that. They made a calculation that they had to get out quick. When you do something in a panic state, that's not very praiseworthy. Compared to something that's done with a straight mind, where you're able to think, without rushing. That is the state that the expanded consciousness achieves. It's called Meichin the Godless. This is the great mind. Which is the opposite of being confounded and agitated in the mind. It says regarding Bnei Reuven, Bnei Gad Nachlam v'Helas Berishena. They sort of like rushed into getting their piece of land before everybody else. It was seen as, oh, here we might be casting a positive light on it. Actually, look it up in the Medrash there at the end of Mates. The Kenis the Medrash Rabbi Yishlach, it says, "Ve'elo anlochim k'moi chulu lifnei ma'leich nachlos muvahelas." So when it speaks about, it still sounds negative here in this passage. It says that when it relates the kings that ruled before the Jewish kings ruled in the Holy Land, or in the world, it was the descendants of Esau. I think he had 8 kings, and that was a type of, it just mentions, and this one reigned, and then this one reigned, and then this one reigned. It doesn't tell anything about what they did, or what they screwed up, probably more likely. But that was like a pen, like the world of chaos. The Eilam Atayu is expressive of that sort of, here it's called Mevuhelas. Oh, it's a nachala mevuhelas. It's an inheritance that's just flung upon you. I don't know if it means in their own, I mean, they weren't descended from the same nation. They weren't even from the people of Esau, the Edom. They borrowed kings, if I understood correctly. So there's a different source for the world that we live in called tikkun, the world of rectification, where there's something to do, there's a mission, whereas in the world of chaos, they're very happy where they are. So the world of order is sourced in meichin stima, shu tachlis sherish in yishuv adas, with the concealed mind. meichem stima, which is the source of having a settled mind. So you tap into that and your mind can stay settled. When you reach the source of our world, which is tikkun, you are able to process things in a settled, measured way. As it says, Salva dausohi sosim, the mind of grandpa is concealed. Hainu, meaning, she'enu mispar b'heder haratzain. He's not agitated and affected. That's why that's the place of atonement. Welcome. You reach the place of atonement and you are transformed and healed. That's called the source of the world of tikkun, meichem stima. It's the grandpa whose mind is, he can't really, it's very rare when he starts talking and you get to learn what it's all about. And therefore, the panic, wasn't a panic actually, that's the point here, the sort of urgent departure from Egypt, although it was necessary, because evil had a grip on them, and they had to go get out urgently. So, I mean, when we talk about the coming redemption, the Rebbe had such a sense of urgency about that. So it's a bit puzzling in light of the Rebbe sourcing this. I want you to bear that in mind, and we'll sort of trace that, how that plays out. Nevertheless, the state of consciousness in the future redemption, you're not going to go out from exile in a panic. That is a much greater state. In other words, they had da'as in both cases. That was the dea, the generation of da'as. They had the ability to be present and absorb and experience things, even though they went through a lot. And therefore you'd think that they'd just be wanting to shut out everything out. But they had the ability to experience that they had the Yeshua Das, the settled state of mind to decide, we have to get out of here now. So they saw a threat. Egypt was a threat. Ervas Haaretz had an impact on them, and they decided to run. So even though that was in a state of Yeshua Das, the state that will be in the future redemption, when it's also going to be the Yeshua Das, with a settled mindset, it has a great advantage over it. One was transient, I think we're going to say, and one's permanent. Let's see. And it does say that actually. Adi parva yeser kihu kiyum nitzchi, because it's an eternal, sustained state. Bal timait al eilam voed, which is never going to falter. Because it comes from the inspired state of mind called meichin legadlis, great or mature mind. When it's already been transformed from darkness into light. So you have a mind to be able to enter a world. The world sometimes looks like an enslavement, an entrapment, and they were trapped in Egypt. Then they start to shine because God shines in their souls, and all these miracles are flapping about. That transforms the darkness into light. But this is talking about the future redemption, which is permanent. It's a complete transformation where we say rather that from Egypt, I said it a bit misleading there, from Egypt, we said before that was escafia, and he's going to mention that in the next passage. So escafia means submitting to higher orders. You get your marching orders, they might go against where you want to pitch up your tent, and you say, okay, I'm still a soldier, I follow orders, I don't understand. But when you've totally transformed yourself, then you're totally in line with the kavana elyona, the supernal intent, and it makes sense. lachazar. When they left Egypt, when the Egyptians were chasing them, they wanted to just surrender to them. Bekama panim haya behem shinuyim, and they underwent they had to face the vicissitudes of going up and down in their degree of righteousness, or in terms of being inspired. So you could see that it hadn't really transformed them, because transformation is permanent. You never go back once you've fixed it. When you've dealt with the parts that draw us into darkness, when you've dealt with them, when you've faced them and dealt with them, come to terms with what they're intended for, ultimately, then there is no going back. That's a curing rather than quick fixes. That's why I like my dieting guru, I love his, I can't think of his name, Harvey Brooker, I love his shalom. He encouraged us not to think of it as a diet. Diets are temporary. You have to eat healthfully, or how did he say it? Healthy eating, or something like that. They had these vicissitudes, they had these ups and downs. This is all because it had not yet been transformed. The evil, they hadn't confronted it. They were just running away from it. It was just a deferral. That's why they went out in nighttime, or they prepared at least and were told to go. Remember, we said in the daytime of their journey, it was a different phase. They were already experiencing something miraculous by then. But when evil will have been confronted and rectified completely, and there will be this settlement of consciousness called hidden mind. Then, when it says you will not go out in a frenzy, nor will you run in a fleeing type of manner, Umal Hashem alikacha es levavcho. The future exodus that's promised will be a way of Hashem circumcising your heart. You didn't know you needed to be circumcised if you hadn't learned this concept. In the Torah, it speaks about there's a covering for the heart that doesn't let it to be itself. So you cut that off, you snip it off, and here Hashem is promised to do that for us. The outer layer is sort of our job, right? The coarseness and the subtlety, the refinement, the nuanced healing is in Hashem's hands. So that's the Priya, I think it says in Terah, I'll Terah. And that is the getting out from the superficial emotional character profile to one that is very in touch with the inner life of the soul. When it says that they went out from Egypt, it does say that they had a circumcision, but it's their job to do it. And maltem, you will circumcise your hearts. You have two because you have two souls. And this provides a reason why they didn't go out, why we are not to go out in frenzy. Because Hashem is going before you, it says, and that means Hashem alone, without the judges, the angels accompanying him. It's going to be a direct connection with Hashem in his essential divine state, as opposed to as Hashem interacts with the world, which goes by the intermediary of a system of angels that channel divine energy to reach us. So God loses his entourage and gains a private environment to connect to each soul. And that is very calming. It's the judgmentalism of the Beis Din, it seems to echo this idea, that causes this unnecessary rush and panic and questioning. But after the rectification, you'll see that it's just you and Hashem. Bechinas ani Hashem leishanisi, which is the aspect of I am the Lord, I do not change. As it says in Malachi, Gilui Sevav Kolamim. This is the revelation of God's transcendent divinity called Sevav, surrounding. The Kameshu leishanisi kakmin Hashem Yisrael, Yegam ken leishanisi. And just as Hashem is intransient and permanent, so too the Jewish people will achieve that permanence. Meaning that there won't be the vicissitudes of divine service, up and down in inspiration. Since in the Exodus from Egypt, the Jewish people, it does say there that Hashem himself came down to swoop them down to save us without an angel. But I think that's just about Makas Bacheres, but the whole Exodus is associated with the Beis Din. Perhaps. Since when they came out from Egypt, they had that court going with Hashem, and that's referring to the way Hashem interacts with the world in a sort of normalized process called Hishtalshlus, chaining down of divine energy so you don't blow up. And that has rhythms, it has changes. Kiyadua, as is known. That's why it's specifically called the tree of life, the place that does not change. Whereas Malchus is a place of change, and it's called a rose, which goes through Ask Van Gogh. That's the sunflowers more. They have all different states in their life. So usually, probably the most common example of the difference between transient and rhythms and Malchus is the moon compared to the sun. Here we're doing the tree of life compared to the rose. Because Malchus has different elevations and descents. Sometimes Malchus descends into the world of the created world called Bia, right? Bria, Yitzira, and Nasiya. And in that context, the divine presence can be sent into exile. Which is the rose amongst thorns, which is a description of Rivka, you may know. That's why in the Exodus from Egypt, the Jewish people underwent many different states, sometimes very victorious and celebratory, and then sometimes very fearful and wanting to return. And when in the future redemption, when Meichin Stima, the hidden mind, will be revealed, it will be with a sort of even keel of cool. Have a great day.